Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Angie.
And together, we are TwinFinity.
And that's it.
This happens to us every so
Apparently,
often.
we haven't done a video in a while. And we forget what happens after that.
Usually it's not the me part of we that says something immediately, but I'm not going to say a whole lot on top of that. But what I will say is, speaking of which being on top of something, I'm really small and over here in, the corner. Everything's reversed too, so I had troubles. Angie is sitting on 3 pillows. So,
not one like normal, but 3.
You see, she's got a really sparkly shirt on. She wants to show off her sparkly shirt.
Well, and I can't even show the whole thing still. But
still
it says love.
It says love. It did not.
And it's in rainbow colors. And there's a reason that I'm wearing rainbows tonight, which we'll get to later.
So if Angie all of a sudden just disappears off the screen, it's because her 3 pillows have toppled over along with her.
Well,
we've already had a test falling
topple.
over.
And then I was trying to get up, and I thought he was giving me a hand to get up, but no, he pushed me further over. So I was really stuck. And Cookie is going to come say hi right now, apparently.
Yes.
She's saying hi.
She brought a toy downstairs to come visit us.
Of course.
Yes. And we may have to throw that sometime.
Yes. So before we start question and answers, as usual, it's Rob's turn to share a fun little story about our everyday lives. And I don't know which one you're going to share because we talked about a few topics and now you get to take it away.
I'm going to choose the bathroom one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got 2 bathrooms upstairs, but probably in the name of keeping all the plumbing and utilities close together, these 2 bathrooms are back to back to each other. One's our master bedroom bathroom. The other one's just like a guest bathroom for if people have come over and visit. It's closer to the kitchen and dining room. So once in a while, Angie and I are both in the bathrooms, one each at the same time. And usually it's Angie, but sometimes it's me.
Sometimes.
We'll do a knock, knock to knock, knock on one side, and the other person has to go knock, knock back.
It's kind of like this.
So, anyway, yes. Sometimes that doesn't always work depending upon what's truly being accomplished in the bathrooms at the time.
And if there's hands free or not.
Yeah, sometimes if a person's just busy making sure they're holding shirts out of the way or whatever's going on, yeah, there's no time to knock back because just
this is becoming far too much TMI and I'm completely red. But the fact is, that is just one of the weird things that we do on
any day.
Yeah, I was going to say on an average day. How often would you say that happens? At least 3 times a week or longer or more?
Probably, yeah, a minimum of 3 times a week. We probably would average 4 times a week. Because, sometimes we're getting ready to go someplace or getting ready to do a video, and we both want to make sure we're running on empty when we leave.
Yeah. So we're both going to the bathroom at the same time, just in different bathrooms with only a wall between them.
I think we better proceed on to Q&A. The stories are endless.
I might be red for the rest of the night. Okay. The first question's a long read, so we ought to get started anyway, not just because it's time to move on from that little topic, but thank you to the person that really wanted to know what happens in our daily lives. Here you go.
We've decided to talk about that. And we've got other topics, but this one I thought would just be kind of fun for the night.
Because it just happened before we started the video.
You can only imagine.
Okay.
So, first question. So what if your suspected twin lives in the public eye, but you're really not the slightest bit popular? That's what has blocked me with our connection. I just wonder how we can make a relationship work that way. Also, I finally got the courage to contact him after all these years of secretly admiring him. Then it just seemed like he just up and started dating this girl he's evidently known for a while, which is another trigger. I have been shamelessly obsessive watching them on Instagram where they post about themselves as a couple, and I really just started to feel sorry for myself and jealous and harboring loads of resentment towards the woman for feeling like she's manipulated him away from me. Oh, bless you. Someone just sneezed way down there. I just got my knee sneezed
Now,
on.
thank God you have pants on instead of shorts. We'll just clarify that.
I also feel resentment towards him for not stepping up and owning his truth. It really does feel like it's cheating to me, which I've had a hard time accepting because we've never actually met or nor talked. So it makes it all that much more baffling to my mind. But believe me, I felt it all. And now I see earlier that she's posted a cute video of their past 7 months together and how she's been pregnant with what I assume is his kid that whole time, which triggered me more than anything. That was when I really thought that we don't have a chance. He's going to be connected to this other, who I think is toxic, woman, for the rest of his life now. And I hate the thought of that, and nor did I ever want that for my life. Well, there's a whole lot in there. You can start if you want.
Okay, I'll start. I just have to kind of go back to what the questions were because there was a lot of story and
there is a lot of story and question.
You suspect your twin to be in the public eye, but you're not really the slightest bit popular. Okay, so that's question number 1. Actually, I think that's really the only question.
The rest of it is kind of story, and it's full of triggers for other people. And I'm having troubles remaining perfectly calm myself because some of what was said there was, I don't really want to call it triggering, but there was a whole lot of what I call full stops. Like, whoa, I'll back up the bus just one moment. But I'm going to let you comment first.
Well, no, what's that mean? Full stops.
Full stops. What I see here is a whole lot of expectation that all the communication has been happening in 5D, and yet there is a disappointment that all the 3D aspects of his life haven't lined up with what the writer of the question has come to understand as being a 5D connection. So most of the time when people say, oh, things have gone bad, it's because they've known and met somebody 1, 2, 3, or 5 or more times, and then they've been rejected. This connection, because it says never actually met nor talked, this connection's never really had a chance to become a connection.
Totally. Except on your part.
on the writer's part. And I don't doubt for a minute that this person, because they're in the public eye all the time, is very used to having to deal with admirers or people who have idolized him. So he's probably very used to just instantly categorizing people before he's actually had a chance to meet them. Oh, so there's been a whole lot of expectations put on him as far as what the expectations of his 3D existence would be like when the two of you haven't even met. Not saying that you won't meet. Yes, there seems to be some barriers here, like another person pregnant. Yep, that's some pretty significant barriers. But it's nothing that hasn't been overcome in the past. But yeah, I think the judgment of what has happened so far has been, I'd call it one notch harsh. And hopefully I'm not being one notch harsh, because a lot of times all we have in some cases, even if you have met someone, is the 5D communication. So sometimes when it's all you got, you put a lot of weight on that. When it's all you got, it's all you got. So I I don't want to discredit how strong that communication can be because sometimes the 5D communication is the complete foundation of what brings people together. But it does help when there's been a little bit of 3D communication to begin with. So, yeah, there's undoubtedly been some disappointment in what's happened. Your turn.
Okay, so going to the actual question is, what do you do when your twin is in the public eye, or you suspect your twin is in the public eye, and you're not the slightest bit popular? So in other words, you have very different lifestyles, very different statuses.
Statuses, that unfortunately is a word that we wish we could get rid of with trying to level the bar with everybody, but sometimes social status, using that word, is just a word that describes what's going on.
Yeah. And there's no judgment on that at all. And in fact, that is so typical of the twin flame journey. And I will find the video that we did. I wish I could remember the title of it, but I will link it above, where we talked about the challenges that twin flames have to overcome. And it might be race, religion, money, gender, social status. I don't think we actually addressed that one in that video.
We might have.
We might have. I can't remember. We did it a couple years ago.
It's very common even without twin flame journey.
Yeah.
The challenges there.
Yeah. So the fact is, it's common to have these sort of challenges because why they show up in the twin flame journey is so that you can show not only yourself but everybody around you, because as twin flames we're here to be a light of love for everybody, right? We're here to kind of be a beacon and show people what true love is. And true love is meant to cross all those barriers. So if you have people that are not of the same race, you might have family members saying, well, you can't be together. But then you can show them, well, yes, we can be together. It doesn't matter what our race is. Love is love is love. Same thing with gender, right? So your situation is different social statuses. So that's something you both have to overcome in showing not only each other that you are worthy and valued, no matter who is more popular than the other, but also showing the rest of the world that true love is true love. It doesn't mean you have to come from the same social status. It doesn't mean you both have to be famous or both have to be not famous in order to be together. So that is very typical, very common. Now, as far as him being with somebody else and now having a child on the way with somebody else, that's also very common for two reasons. One, because this is part of his journey, is to be with somebody else to clear karma. She might be a soulmate with him, she might be a karmic partner, but she is in his life for a very specific reason, to help him grow, learn, clear things, to prepare him for you. So instead of resenting this other person, which again, I'm not judging, I get how hard that can be.
It is.
If you can look at it as a gift that this person is in his life to help him do the work that he needs to do so that he can be with you down the road when the time is right. And as far as a child in the way, yes, he'll always be connected to her, but that child might also be very connected to you on a soul level as well. So there might be some dynamics that you don't understand yet that will play out later that are to your benefit. This might be a soul child of yours that you will have a very strong bond with later in the future. So as for where he's at, I mean, yes, it might feel like cheating to you, but it's certainly not to him, because on a conscious level, he doesn't even know you exist yet. So be gentle with the situation and just let it play out. As hard as I know that is, because you just want what you want now, when you know that this is a divine connection. Why can't he see it? It's because it's not time in his journey to see it yet. He's got to go through other things, as do you. You have your own growth to do, and this is part of it. You have growth in terms of accepting his connection with somebody else right now, and you also have growth in other areas of your life. So take the time, do the work, do the growth, and allow him to be with her and honor their connection, knowing that it's helping in the background your connection with him.
I myself would be much more concerned if he was in a relationship where everything was just absolutely stable and things were the same day to day. Things were just completely non-changing. He's in what is described here in my mind is a relatively new relationship. Looks like he's got a child on the way, and with all these changes and everything else, it's a fantastic time for him to do the growth that most of us need to do. So with that thought, yeah, when growth is happening all over the place, it's also very hard to predict where that growth is going to end up. Maybe this person that's in the public eye all the time also does a lot of traveling, and they may step out of the public eye to be closer to their, for now, family. So there's just so much change happening that there's plenty of opportunities for recognition of connection to come along. So yes, with all the change happening, I consider that to be good. Stagnation is harder to break through because that means a person's locked themselves into patterns that they've likely become so comfortable with that they wouldn't want to change it, or else they would.
And also know that, he's not aware, or probably is not aware of you on a conscious level yet. But that doesn't mean he won't be in divine time. He will be brought to awareness of the connection just like you were. So again, if you can trust the flow of the process and trust the universe, it guided you to know about this connection. So when it's the right time for him, it'll guide him. And you'll be amazed at the magic of how your paths will cross if and when they're meant to. So you don't need to force anything, just allow things to flow. And don't worry about the fact that you're not famous, not popular, and he is. It'll work out the way it's supposed to. Because remember, these are connections of the soul. So your one soul in two bodies is always magnetized back to itself, back to each other. So he will find you and you will find him in the right, perfect time. Anything else, Dad?
No, nothing really.
Okay, I'm going to give you that back.
Okay. That,
For
meaning the list of questions.
Yes. For the next question.
For the next question, I got to move my leg because I've just put my foot to sleep.
It's already numb?
And I'm...
Only started.
I know. Well, we had a little bit of warm-up time before we got started.
Yeah, or you were pushing me off my pillows.
Yeah, well, I was just not helping pushing you back on very well.
Okay.
So in behind my poor smile is a foot that's just screaming at me because it's just waking up. I'm struggling.
It's nighttime. It's supposed to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah. I could always put it out in the cold snowbank right now too. It's really cold out, and I'm really quite enjoying wearing a sweater and sitting in behind a sweater.
Okay, just read the next question.
Read the next question.
Oh, my dear.
Since twin flames are always connected, even through the awareness or the physical, even though the awareness or physical meeting hasn't occurred yet, where are the signs that you can both recollect from the time that before you ever met? That's very good.
Were there signs or where are the signs?
Where are the signs you both can recollect from the time before you ever met? Wow.
Okay.
Even very early in your separate lives, Where could you allude to the fact that you had a twin flame? Oh, for instance, a feeling, a feeling of the other somehow. Early signs or feeling connected to certain themes or dynamics that were similar to the twin flame experience. Oops, I should have read this question. It's got some grammatical difficulties, and I'm having a lot of trouble with it. Also, feeling drawn to certain types of romance stories in books or movies. Is there anything like that that can give you a hint that that you have ever met before? Ah, even for Rob, as a Matrix twin, is there any of this sort of thing that you can recall? Hmm. There's a lot of questions in this question. Angie, did you know that you had a twin flame before meeting Rob somehow? Or did the awakening in this regard begin for you after the physical meeting? Also, how do you best clear yourself from the energies that don't serve you and from past lives energies that interfere with growth? That's a lot of questions in one question.
Okay, if you're willing, I'd like to hear your part first, your question here about as the Matrix twin. Did you ever feel me or feel that there was somebody, something, some sort of connection?
For the longest time as a younger youth, like let's call that mid-teens, early teens, I I had heard of the concept of meeting the one, the one person, and I didn't really resonate with that. I as a younger person, I was a reasonably strong believer in the thought that love is every bit as much of chance as it also is a choice. So you can choose to love someone just as well as you can be all enamored, like love at first sight. Either way could both work. As a person in my early 20s, notwithstanding the fact that I had gotten married, I still had a thought that I would meet someone who was incredibly special. Although at that time I was certain that I was with someone who was also quite special, but I still thought that I would meet someone where there'd be an incredible amount of spark, even though the timing was all wrong because I was already married. So I was prepared to meet that person, but not be able to do much about it other than just internally acknowledge to myself, at a minimum, that I had met someone. Um, when I moved to Calgary, I was back on my own again, and I was pretty determined not to meet people deeply romantically for a while because I was all now disillusioned with this whole living together marriage stuff. I was going through that phase. But still, the thought that there was not necessarily a someone for me, but somebody incredibly special, someone who I would think myself would stand out. I actually believed that I would meet that person, although I wasn't seeking them out. I was just quite accepting that that could happen, not expecting that it would.
Interesting.
And that whole thought process, tucked away in the back of my mind that everything was possible from that point of view, really, really hit me hard on the day that Angie and I had our magical long day tour of the Rockies together. Because, finishing off that day with the reverse sunset that most of you would know by now, and if not, we've mentioned it and described it in a few other videos. Uh, that that was a huge sign to me that I had met someone who was far different than the normal people who I was meeting. So yeah, did I have signs? I didn't have signs that I was going to meet someone, but against all my other ways of thinking, I did have this belief that I couldn't justify because it hadn't happened yet. And it was more than just a hope. It was a true feeling that somebody with a very interesting energy would come into my life.
Interesting. For me, it was a little different. I never really had signs per se growing up. And interestingly enough, growing up, I actually hated men, anything male. And if you know of
We
our.
lost a poppy.
Yes, we did. If you know of our story video, or even mine from our story videos, we each kind of shared our lives before we met. And I had a lot of trauma with men. So growing up, I even bet my grandfather $1,000 that I'd never get married because I was so determined I was never going to be with a man. But I always had this dream or knowing or something that I would have twins as children. And some people will be like, well, if you plan to never be with a man, how are you going to have kids? And I had researched it and everything, had seriously considered a sperm bank, even as like a young teen. So I had planned I was going to have twins, and their names were going to be Nancy and Nicole. They were going to be girls. I don't know how that was all going to figure out, but I just had felt like twins were in my life somehow, some way. And as I got older, and I did finally get interested in men after I'd done a lot of healing and therapy, I started reading Harlequin romance novels, and I read a lot of those. And so I had this whole dream of, like that big romantic love. And it was only, I should have looked in my journal. I think it was only about 2 weeks before Rob and I met. I made a list of 40 qualities that I wanted in a man. And then, poof, it was like the universe went, okay, now that you've gotten clear, here he is. And then we met, and he had everything but one quality on the list, and that was that he liked the ballet. That was one of my qualities.
I'll miss that one. I'm fine.
There's no way Rob's going to go to a ballet with me. But no,
Probably
I'm okay
not.
with that. But that was one of the things on my list. So there we go. So I didn't at first, but it gradually started to evolve into yes. But the whole twin thing has always, always, always been there. Just always felt a connection to twins, not realizing that that wasn't about me having twins, but that was me being one. So it's kind of neat. And I know lots of people feel that sort of great love. They know there's like a special love out there for them. I didn't feel that for a long, long time. I didn't feel that until just probably a couple months before Rob and I met. So I'm kind of glad for that, because I know some people they really suffer and struggle with that because they feel this person, this connection, and they're like, where are you? I'm grateful I didn't have to suffer with that for very long. I only suffered for a couple weeks.
I'm going to go off on just a very short, small tangent.
Okay.
You talk about having twins.
Yeah.
Now we have thousands of twins in our lives. Thanks to you folks. Okay, I just had to say that.
There we go. There's our twin children. Lots of them.
Lots of them. So many we have troubles keeping track of you all.
All right. I think we're ready for another question.
I don't know if I was
Did we answer this one home?
Yeah. It was... No, actually we did.
Oh, the only thing we haven't. How did you best clear yourself from the energies? Or how do you best clear that don't serve you?
No.
There's lots of ways.
I like the wording of that question. Do you clear yourself of energies, or do you clear the energies of yourself? Because that's how this one was worded. How do you best clear yourself from the energies? So it's almost like, do the energies remain and you step away from them? Or do you remain and remove the energies?
Got it.
I sometimes wonder whether it wouldn't be a better service and also a bit of honor and recognition of those energies if the energies were allowed to stay, but we stepped away from them. We kept them at arm's distance by doing the work to step away from them so that we could see other aspects of our lives and our connections clearer without trying to eliminate the energies that got us to where we were. I'm not much of a fan of eliminating energies and cutting cords and various other things where you almost dishonor. That's harsh, but dishonor where you've come from. So I really like how that was worded. How do you best clear yourself from the energies?
And I liked how they asked about past life energies, because that, honestly, if you know me, you know past life is like a passion of mine. And I'm a big believer in past life regression to help clear things, heal things, and it really helps with union as well. If you know, again, our journey, I had to do a lot of work on Rob and I in 5D in helping clear some of our past lives so that we could come into union. So, yeah, doing past life work and healing through regression is a very powerful, powerful way to clear energies. Absolutely.
When I was a young child, my mom and dad were were not afraid to talk about their belief that we had lived before, that reincarnation was a strong possibility of having existence.
Wow,
And
I don't
then
think I knew that.
and then
Cool.
they also though talked about how all your previous learnings from previous lives are wiped completely clean, and you come to Earth with no knowledge of the past or anything between lives. And that never really quite did settle with my very young mind because I tried to imitate that with a pencil, and no matter how hard I rubbed with the eraser, there was always a trace of the pencil or even where the pencil had been, like just the doodle mark.
Good analogy.
Yes, there was always a trace left. So I'd always considered that maybe it was only 99.9% wiped clean and that you could bring something with you. And now, years and years later, I strongly believe that even 99.9% is harsh. I would only think about 80%.
We bring a lot with
We
us.
bring a lot with
Yeah,
us.
I got such an itchy nose.
and-
Must be kissing a fool.
It's happened before.
Not that it's you. I'm not saying that at all.
So, yeah. So, past life energies interfering with growth? Well, I could say absolutely. Or maybe they're just directing growth in a direction that they were unable to do before. I don't know if I'd call that interference. Interference is a little too negative. Again, I'm a strong believer in honoring your past, no matter how far back it goes.
I flipped the page for you.
Any other further comments in regards to that question?
No, I don't think so.
The dog was wearing a poppy. I hung the poppy that fell from the O of love onto a cord that's ahead of the screen. And then the dog walks underneath it, and the poppy gets dragged off of that and was on the dog for a while. Now it's made it back down to the floor again. I'm going to leave the poppy on the floor. Evidently, that's where it's supposed to be.
Evidently. My goodness. Quite the dissertation. I flipped the page for you already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this question.
Okay.
How do you trust your intuition? Boy, there's a big question, and right there, that's a good one. I can stop right there. I got a whole answer. I should read the question. How do you trust your intuition when the dissonance, there's a word I don't know, dissonance between 3D and 5D is putting you off? For example, my twin is engaged and on social media looks pretty fine, and content with his partner, but I'm getting signs and a push to tell my twin about the connection, not necessarily using the term twin flame. I've been asking myself, what's the lesson I need to learn when I see this dissonance between 3D and 5D? It's sometimes frustrating because it seems stupid. Like it's so obvious in the 3D that he's with somebody else. But my intuition is telling me to take premature actions, and then the fear is obviously being rejected and embarrassed. And if that's the outcome, why do I need to put myself through this? Yeah. How do you trust your intuition? Right.
Excuse me.
Oh.
One more. Okay.
That goes with the itchy nose.
Yes. Now I should be good. I think I got some dog dander up my nose from scratching the dog.
Okay. So why do I need to put myself through this? For growth? Nah, lots of laughs. Sorry for the spew. I guess I'm figuring it out as I'm typing, but if you have anything to add to this, that would be really helpful.
That's so funny. Okay, I have a one-word answer. I will elaborate, but the one word is trust. When there's a discrepancy between your 3D and your 5D, and you're like, what do I do with this? It's because you're being guided to learn to trust your intuition, trust your guidance, trust your gut. To know that 3D is the illusion and 5D is the real reality. So you might be being guided to tell him this because maybe he's not as happy as he's portraying. Maybe he's got a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, a lot of, I don't know if this is the right path for me. But on the outside, he's making it all look like, oh, I got this all and I'm happy and everything's perfect. And maybe it's not. So the dissonance is about learning to trust yourself, not what you see on the outside.
A lot of people balance 3D versus 5D as opposed to balancing 3D with 5D. The learning to trust that both are real, and I could stretch this out to say that both are right, and it's just very hard for us to learn the connections that make a situation that seems so black and white, one's against the other, to actually really be that one's working with the other. That's where you sometimes need to have the patience that also works with trust. Trust is one of Angie's favorite words. Patience is one of mine. To let things roll through, work out, and then learn. Like have the patience to learn from what is happening, as opposed to instantly judging that the two are working against each other. One isn't helping the other.
Good point.
They tend to balance each other in a more positive way. It just takes time for that direction to show. And if you have the patience to wait for the trust to come along,
there you go.
That's usually a better route. So why do you put yourself through this? Maybe you put yourself a little too close to it. Like right now, I'm getting warmed by a fire behind me that could be super dangerous if it wanted to be.
Speaking of dangerous, the dog's falling down the stairs, bringing her toys down.
The dog is dragging every large toy it can find down the stairs. And of course, small dog, big stairs, large toys. That tends to mean a tumble or two. Just had a tumble.
Okay.
So, trust and patience. That's why you put yourself through this. We kind of all did too. Sometimes you just have to trust that it's all going to work out in the end, not knowing when the end is.
Yep. Was there any more to that, or was that kind of...
There's fears of rejection and embarrassment, but That's all part of judgment. And usually we judge ourselves far harsher than others do. Others go, well, that didn't turn out too well for you. In the meanwhile, you're beating yourself up over every little thing that you possibly could have done wrong to have created that outcome.
Well, and it's interesting, just reading this further, I'm understanding even more of the question. And just to give an example from our own life, on 3D, Rob and I were in, this was a year or two before we came into union. We were coming back into a little bit of reconnection. We were just texting literally about license plates, and that was it. If I dared stare, or no, if I dared steer fireplace, then the conversation would be halted. He wouldn't communicate anymore. So we literally were playing this goofy license plate game, which we still play, by the way.
Lots of different versions at the same time, but
Yes.
I do that to myself.
So in 3D, all we had for a connection was talking about license plates. Yet in 5D, I was getting so much information, and he was telling me I'm being prepared for union, and I'm coming, and I'm awakening, and my DNA is changing, and all of this is happening, and I'm like, yeah, okay, because I see all of that on 3D for sure. And he kept telling me, tell me we're twin flames. Like, tell my 3D self. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm telling you that. Like, you can't
Bleep.
even handle. Yeah, go ahead, bleep me. Bleep my hell word. And I had to take that leap of faith that his soul really was telling me to tell his 3D self that we were twin flames. And I did. And it worked to our benefit, and we're together now because I told him. So it's scary, I know, when your 3D reality is not at all what your 5D reality is, and you're like, which one do I believe? Which one do I go with? Always, always, always trust your inner energies versus the outer, because the outer is just the facade. So hopefully that's helpful. Now, interestingly enough, this next question just ties in with a little bit of what I just shared about DNA. And I hadn't even planned to do that. Isn't that neat?
It's interesting that they're in order, one behind each other. Oftentimes questions will just do that. The one will just lead into the other.
Yes. But this next question is why I'm wearing rainbows, rainbows.
I might get to be pretty quiet this question. Because Angie's all ready for it.
That's okay. The dog wants your attention anyway, so you should see the way she's looking at you so adoringly. Like,
pet me. I'm currently watching your video number 28. I have to remember which one that would be. When you mentioned you were shown that Rob's DNA was changing from your star beings. Wondering if you could explain a little bit more what is actually happening when your twin's DNA is changing as he is awakening. Also, I wanted to see what is your connection with rainbows. There's lots of rainbows here tonight.
Yes, there are.
I had a fantastic dream after I spoke to my twin and I fell asleep, and I literally say 8 rainbows, it could be saw, 8 rainbows stacked. I also walked under the end of it into this gold dusty glaze, and I actually turned into gold, shouting, I am gold. What takes it to another level is in the same dream, I looked in the night sky and had seen all these rainbows, and there's a word there I don't know, or
Merkabahs.
Merkabahs. Tonight's the words I don't know night. Or sacred or sacred geometry. It was like portals in the sky, and they were rainbow colored. So cool.
Totally cool.
So if you could elaborate on your connection of rainbows and maybe the connection they have with twin flames and also the DNA change between your twin, that would be great.
Yes, I'm so excited about this question. Here, I would like to hold this so I make sure I answer everything. So about the
I'll throw in the odd comment too.
first thing of DNA changing, I can't elaborate too much because it was never explained to me what exactly was happening when Rob said his DNA was changing. But basically, he did tell me he was up on his planet, like his main sort of planet with his star beings, which is
Sirius.
Sirius. Thank you. I always forget which planet he's from.
I always think it's just I'm always so serious, which is not always true.
I should remember it that way. Good point. So when we were having this outer conversation about nothing but license plates, but the inner 5D conversation was all about he was awakening and he was with his planet beings and his DNA was changing. I would suspect that that the DNA is changing to awaken the inactive. You know how they say we have so much more DNA than we're actually using? And a lot of it they used to call junk DNA. Well, it's not junk. It's inactive DNA. And as we awaken to more of our spiritual side, more of our eternal, multidimensional side, our DNA awakens and we start accessing some of that, which is how then we can access telepathy and our sixth sense, our intuition, all of those other things. What on earth is our dog doing tonight? I'm sorry. She's just being bizarre.
It makes me, by the way, just to interrupt that, I just had a thought that all this DNA that doesn't appear to be doing very much, I wonder if it was created as a bridge for when our own Akashic records had to be withdrawn for when we come to be incarnated on the planet. It was holding a lot more stuff during that transition time, and then it's not needed once we're finally here.
Or I kind of see it as the other. Then it is more needed because as we awaken, we remember more of our Akashic records.
Okay.
We bring in more of our past life again. They're not really past lives, they're current lives in other dimensions. That's too confusing to get into, though. But we start remembering our multidimensional self, and that's part of the DNA changing, the DNA awakening. So it's like it's turning on parts of the DNA that have been inactive. It's activating them and awakening them so they can now be accessed. So that answers the DNA question. And I loved when Rob was reading this, I connected with this more, and I just want to throw this out and see if this fits for this person. They were saying that they had a dream and they saw 8 rainbows stacked. When Rob read the word 8, it just made me think of infinity. How cool is that? Infinite rainbows. And the connection of rainbows, and I actually I hunted before this video. I had what's called a Life Between Lives regression done way back in June of 2004. I don't know how well you can read that. And it was actually on a tape, like a cassette tape. That's how old this is. And because we don't have many cassette tape players in our world anymore,
I have one.
I actually transcribed this in 2012, and I literally went word by word and wrote out. I paused the tape, would write it all out, and then play the next bit, write it all out. So I transcribed my entire session. And the reason I brought this out for this question is because it talks about that in my Life Between Lives regression. The person that had done the regression with me was asking, I went too far.
So I come home from work and Angie's already queuing this up in her mind, and then she starts to go looking for these
madly searching
records that she has.
Okay, so he's asking me about have I lived in other worlds and other planets? And I said yes, and I'm describing this other planet. And this, of course, was, as I say, in 2004. I had no knowledge of this consciously. I wasn't reading books about other planets. Like, I didn't know any of this. So it was all coming out for the first time in this regression. And I was talking about, we have so much more technology. Like, we're a much more advanced society. and we do live in bodies, but we're very much more conscious, and we remember love, and that's what we live by. So even though we're more technology advanced than humans are, we don't get stuck in the technology. We use it to our benefit, but we still remember the love and light of every person, and that is the core connection that we have. And so then he was asking me, what color do you see yourself as? And I described myself as rainbow colors. So it's interesting, in this life, I am very connected to rainbows. My whole meditation slash Reiki room is rainbow colored. I actually just got these the other, like 2 days ago. They weren't earrings, they were keychains, and I made them into earrings because I was like, I need rainbow earrings. So your question's very fitting for the timing too, because I literally just got my rainbow earrings.
Angie would turn dirt into earrings. She turns anything into earrings.
I love earrings.
And then she goes searching for necklaces to match her earrings. And then occasionally she has a necklace that doesn't have earrings, and then she goes looking for the earrings to match her necklace. I'm seriously, one of these times I'm going to challenge her to wear a different set of necklace and earrings every day for a year, and see whether or not she runs out.
Yes.
There'd be no run out.
No. So in this regression, it comes down to this person again that was regressing me, had said that he asked about my colors, what colors I saw my soul having, because it indicates where we've lived on other planets. So those of us that are advanced souls, and again, there's no sort of ego in that, because every soul is advancing at its own level. But for those of us that have chosen the twin flame path and other advanced paths, we have incarnated many, many times, not just on Earth, but other lives or other planets as well. So those of us that connect with rainbows, it's usually because we've really tapped into our multidimensional self, meaning that we have experienced many planets, many different beings. We have been in Atlantis, we have been in Lemuria, we have been everywhere and everything, not just Earth. And that's what gives us our multidimensional light, which becomes rainbows, right? Because each planet sort of has its own light and color of light, if that makes sense. So as we experience all of those different multidimensional energies, we absorb that, and it becomes part of the full rainbow. So as advanced beings, it's like we have literally embraced every color that there is by being on different planets. And some of us, that means we're now drawn to rainbows. And we love everything rainbow. And I'm one of them, and you're one of them, and I know many people that are connected to rainbows. And that's not to say that you're not an advanced being if you're not connected to rainbows. Not everybody has to be. It's just some of us take those things and remember it in this life. And just as an explanation of my jewelry, the one thing I love about jewelry is it's colorful and sparkly. And that also reminds me of spirit world. It reminds me of home, because everything there has like a light and a sparkle and a life. Like the plants are alive in a different way than our plants are. And everything sort of has a hue of iridescence and sparkle and magic to it. And that's why I love jewelry, because it reminds me of home. It reminds me of that sparkle. So again, just to say that if rainbows aren't your thing, that doesn't mean you're not advanced. That doesn't mean you've not been on other planets. You might have your own connection of other things. Maybe it's roses. Maybe you love roses for a specific reason, or other flowers, or something else. But some of us just love our rainbows. And for me, that's why. It's because it reminds me of my multidimensional self and all of the other planets and star systems I've experienced. And I think that answers all of that.
I have a couple of comments, and one I might not be able to get through because I just might not have the right words. The first one, while you were talking, it kind of reminded me that, sometimes we pick on those people that seem to have shiny object syndrome.
Ha ha ha.
Now, most of you would have an idea what I meant by that, like where they're just easily distracted by anything that glitters.
They call us magpies too.
So is shiny object syndrome a form of disability or mental disease, or is it actually a recognition of something that you've known before, but you just can't quite put your finger on because it wasn't necessarily from this life?
Mm. Good point.
Shiny object people tend to be quite interesting from my experience. They tend to be not colored exactly into the lines whenever they talk about things or recognize things. So I tend to see them as being more growthful. They might not recognize it themselves, but it's pretty easy to see from my point of view that the shiny object people are following something that is more than just what I'd call earthly. And then the second thing is I've halfway missed your answer because I've been boggled. My mental CPU has been grinding away to the point that it kind of shut off my ears and was focused on what it was trying to come to a conclusion on. I'm going to back you up to nearly the beginning of your answer. You made a comment, now I'm having troubles really remembering the comment, I hope you do, about back in 2004 you didn't know much about this and that or whatever it was, however you worded that. We talk about how the matrix twin oftentimes doesn't have much of a 5D connection to begin with.
Mm.
But even in 2004, let's even go back to 1997, I had knowledge that Angie knew far more than she thought that she knew. Because for you to say that in 2004 you didn't have much knowledge or connection or understanding of something, I was nearly going to shake my head as if to say, of course you did. You were actually far beyond that. But how would I know that?
I wasn't beyond that consciously. On a different level I was, but not really consciously.
No, this is what I'm talking about is when I first met you, this is going back a couple of questions, and why this is linking back, it's not for me to understand. But I've always known that your connections were deeper than what you understood. And the only way that I would know that is if something had told me that in 5D.
Right.
And I'm really starting to understand that I think that in 5D I was preloaded with the knowledge that you knew more than you understood or that I could understand, but I had to recognize that in 3D to be able to sort and file the occasional thing that you would say. So, I'm not saying that I knew more than you, but I think for quite a while in the beginning of our relationship, I maybe knew on a 3D level because of what my 5D side had learned. I maybe knew more about you than you knew.
Yes. Well, you were always very intuitive with me. When we first met,
yeah,
he just knew what to do with me, and yeah. So I'm not surprised that on some level you knew that I knew, but I didn't know consciously.
So
that's all confusing.
So whenever Angie says, "Oh, I didn't know much about that," then I didn't. I'm always going, no, you've always been beyond that. You were just catching up with yourself.
Yeah, that's the thing. My 5D self was all awake, but my 3D self had to catch up.
But yet, that knowledge for me is actually just in a very, very narrow band of potential knowledges but it was the kind of knowledge that I needed to be able to survive knowing Angie. Without that knowledge, somewhere within inside of me, without that feeling, without that calmness that came with that knowledge, that turned it from being questioning her sanity to turning it into a little bit of a curiosity. Yeah, changing it from questioning insanity to questioning it as a curiosity. That's
Yes.
good words.
Yeah.
Without that knowledge being instilled in me somewhere, somehow, I probably would have chosen the insanity.
I'm sure you did for a while. Not to cut us off, but we've reached our 1 hour
Oh, we
point.
just did.
Yeah.
Just crossed over.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I didn't look at the clock when we started. That's quite unlike me.
I know. Mr. Timekeeper. So we're going to end there for now. There's, of course, always more questions, which we will get to in another video.
Not a ton more questions,
Well,
but
not on this page, but there's more pages
Oh.
not printed. Don't
Yeah.
you worry.
I guess there's lots.
There's always lots of questions. Every month I'm feeling guilty because I'm like, there's more questions than I can answer in one video. But we get to them when we can, and it's always divine time for you when it's answered. So it always
Okay.
works out.
So I was thinking of making a statement that would sound like a promise, but I'm going to leave it behind. But for sure, 1, maybe 2 videos in December. I'd like to do a year-end one.
Really?
A year-end one to go along with the month-end.
Okay. That sounds like a lot of pressure now.
It certainly does. We'll have to set aside a little bit of time.
All right.
Feeling quite excited about that.
Okay. Well, we haven't discussed this, so it should be interesting.
There's lots we don't discuss before we do a video.
This is true.
Like what's going to be our thingy, our bit of the video that we talk about that's to do with us beforehand. That's never discussed.
No.
All right.
All right, we're going to wrap up. We love you guys. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And we'll be back with another video, hopefully sooner than later. And if Rob gets his way too, next month.
Boy, I've really stepped in at that time, haven't I?
Oh dear.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye.